So I am Tiago, and I am going to talk about Vue.js and how we can use it with robots, especially fluffy robots. And by doing so, we are also going to dive into Vue 3 that just came out to beta, and so we can already use it. So about the future, we don't know much about the future. We know that it will probably have robots, and we hope that they will be nice robots. So robots, okay, cool. Also, it cannot be much worse than 2020, right? So I think the future can only go better. So who am I? I am Tiago. I love robots. This is me in another presentation, also playing with robots and Vue.js. And also, if you are a robot from the future, seeing this video, know that I am on your side. So please don't kill me. You can put me in your people's zoo. But okay, I'm on your side, okay? I am saving a robot, and I risk my life to save the robot. So I also love Vue.js. I also love NativeScript, which is a framework to develop native applications using JavaScript and also using Vue.js. And I also love irc.com. That's my company right now. And we are trying to bring IRC to the 21st century and make like a modern clients and solutions based on IRC. So Vue.js version 3. I don't know if many of you have already played with it a bit, but it was built for several reasons. First of all, a very good reason to use Vue version 3 is that you can extract the reactivity part. So all that part that we love about the Vue, that everything is reactive. So when our data changes, it updates the UI and vice versa. All that works on top of a bunch of reactivity code. And now you can actually use that as a standalone package. So you can use it on your Angular or on your React or even on your Node application. So what we are doing today is we are going to use it with robots. So there's that. One moment. Okay. Also, Vue.js version 2 was quite nice. But once you want to build something more complex, you had to resort to mixins, which kind of have like some weird behavior. And sometimes it's hard to know where the behavior is coming from, especially if you have several mixins in the same component. Or you could also use something like scoped slots, which is not very friendly. Every time I want to use scoped slots, I have to see the documentation because yeah, it's not very intuitive comparing to the rest of the Vue.js API. And also, Avenue took this opportunity to rebuild Vue.js using proxies, which is a newish JavaScript ability to observe objects. So you can put a proxy on top of a JavaScript object and catch anytime that a property in that object is set or retrieved. So it's kind of a rebuild from scratch using these proxies, which make everything more performant. So let's play with robots. If you want to use JavaScript with robots, you are talking about nodebots. So that's the keyword that you will have to put in Google to learn more about how to use JavaScript with robots. Specifically, you can use Johnny 5, which is a very nice and clean API to play with all types of hardware, like Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, and pretty much all type of hardware. And the API is very simple. You will see next. But so you have node bots. But if you add Vue, then you have Viewbots. So this is a word that I made up. I hope it catches on. So Viewbots, robots built with Vue. So let's get started with reactivity. Okay, and this works. Wait, okay. So I hope you can see my code, and I hope you can see a bunch of wires right here. So just a little explanation. Ignore most of that stuff. For now, you can see I have an Arduino here, which is connected through USB to my computer. And I have a LED over here and a button over here. And let's start doing some stuff. So first, let's understand a little bit just the basics on how Johnny 5 works. So with Johnny 5, you have to import 5, which is the Johnny 5 API, and then the board a class. You have to create an instance of a board. A board kind of represents a piece of hardware, in this case, the Arduino. And then you can make this callback. So when the board is ready, in the ready state, you can access the hardware in this way, which is very simple. I am creating an LED that is connected to the pin number 2, which is this orange wire right here that I covered in tape for extra security. And so I create this instance, and from that moment on, I can use all sorts of functions. In this case, I'm only going to turn the LED on. And so all I have to do is run node, and our LED is on. So cool. That's how the Johnny 5 works. It's a very simple API. But now let's start making some stuff with VueJS and the Reactivity Module. So I am importing the Reactivity Module right here, and I am starting by creating a reference to a value. When you create a reference, you kind of make some value reactive. So if you want to make a primitive value reactive, you have to use this ref so that VueJS can track when this value changes. And then, so consider this LED on as a piece of data that you could put in the data part of your VueJS template. Okay, so then I am creating an effect. An effect is like a watcher or like a computed property. An effect is a function that is executed every time something inside it changes. So this effect will do the following. Whenever the value of LED on changes, it will turn on. If the value changes to true, it will turn the LED on. If the LED changes to false, it will it will turn the LED off. So think about this. It works like a computer property or like a watcher function. In fact, in Vue.js 3, the watcher uses this effect function in the underneath. So then I have this simple function, this set interval, only to switch the value of LED. So if it's true, it turns into false, and vice versa. And I am running this every 500 milliseconds. Now let's see how this works. Okay, it works. Our LED is blinking, and right now I have to pause for a moment and take a moment to appreciate what's happening here. Right now, our Vue.js code is entering into the physical world. So with Vue.js, we usually only move a few pixels on the screen, but right now, Vue.js is turning a LED or on and off in the physical world. I don't know if haven't you ever thought that people would use Vue to do this kind of stuff, but here we are. Cool, we have something. Let's play with something else. Like I said, I have this button right here, and I want to play with it too. So I am copying this bunch of code. So I am not a junior engineer. I am a senior engineer. So this is how senior engineers do live coding. So Piotr, this is for you. We don't do live coding. It's too dangerous. Don't do it. It's safer this way. So this is how seniors do it. Okay, so this is pretty much the same for a button. I am creating a reference to the state of the button. So this is a string that will change. And then I am creating the Johnny 5 instance of that button that is connected to the pin number 4, somewhere around here. And then I am creating a bunch of listeners on Johnny 5 so that whenever the button changes, it will update the value on this reference over here. So it will update. And then I am using the effect function again, only to log this behavior, so we can actually see whenever something happens. So here we go. And as you can see, the button has 3 states: up when it's up, down, and hold. So when I press for a while, so here we go. And you can see in the terminal, it's working. So okay, cool. It's working. So now we have a very simple output, which is the LED, and a very simple input, which is the button. How can we mix them up? We can do that with a computed property. So let's say that we want to make the LED on whenever the button is pressed. We can use that. We can do that with a computed property. So this LED.on state, instead of being a simple reference, it can be instead a computed property. So a computed is a function that will return something, and it will run whenever something changes inside that function. So I have to delete this. I am also going to remove this set interval because I want to use it. I want to change the value of LED on whenever the button state changes. I also have to move some code around because I am using button state over here, so I have to declare that state here. So okay, cool. Let's see if it works. Okay, it works. So right now, whenever the button state changes to down or to hold, to the down or hold state, LED on will be converted to true, and then this effect over here will turn the LED on or off, according to that. Okay, cool. So now we have a button that moves something. Cool. Let's do something else. I also have this other file. Now let's use another bit of hardware, which is this potentiometer. This is like a button, but you can rotate it, and so you can use, like, instead of only on or off, you can use it to set a range of the values. So this is what I made. I am also creating an instance of the LED on pin number 2, and now I am setting a blink to be like the frequency of the blink. So when I run this code, the LED will be set with the frequency of this reference. So it will blink every 182 milliseconds. Yeah. So, but I am also creating a sensor to instantiate this piece of hardware, and whenever this value changes, I am going to change the value of this reference, of the blink reference. Let's see this working. Okay, so right now it's blinking very slowly, about once per second, but once I reduce the blink time, it will start blinking faster and faster. So cool, works. Okay, another example, very similar to the previous one. The only difference is that I am using a potentiometer to do all this. And as you can see, this is throwing a bunch of events, but VueJS deals with all of them, no problem. Okay, back to the slides. So we all love VueJS reactivity, but we also love components. That's the way that we are used to create our applications and try to divide our application into smaller components that are easier to reason about, and also components that can be reused, so we decrease the amount of code and complexity that way. So, but can we use components with this kind of hardware? Well, in order to use components, we need a runtime, and VueJS version 3 comes with a runtime called runtime-DOM for the DOM, and but we can use another runtime called runtime-test. So this is a very basic runtime that is only used for for the unit testing inside VueJS. But since it's very basic, we can actually use it for this kind of stuff. So the runtime is the package responsible for creating the components and making sure that the component lifecycle works. So it implements the component lifecycle, and the rendering, all that is done in the runtime, the package. So let's see how it works. Okay, so I have another file right here, and I am creating some components right here. So again, I am importing some stuff from the Reactivity Module, effect and the reactive. I will tell more about that later. And then I am importing some stuff from the runtime. So things like the render, the h function, which if you ever built functional components in Vue.js, you already have used these functions, but previously they were already in the scope automatically. But with Vue.js 3, you have to import everything, which is, I think, better, because there are no magic state floating around. And so again, I am creating a 5 instance and a board instance, and I am creating my first component right here, the component LED, LED. So this is my component, and I could use my data right here, etc. But Vue.js 3 has a new function called setup that allows you to do a bunch of things that in Vue.js 2 would have to be split apart. So sometimes you have to put something on the created, then that uses something that comes from a prop, and then it updates some data. And so in order to follow the state in your component, you would have to look in several places on your script. But with setup, you can do it only in one function. So it's one function that will create your component. And you can do pretty much everything that you could do in your data, in your mounted, created, etc. And this function will return another function, which is the render function for this component. Of course, the render function for a LED is pretty much nothing. So I am returning an empty function. So in our LED component, I have only to create an LED instance of the 5 library, and then it will receive a pin, so that I know which pin the LED is connected to. That comes from the props. So I already know right here what are the props on this component. And then I am again using the effect, so that when a prop called on, the on prop is on, the LED is turned on, and when the prop on is false, the LED is turned off. So this is my first component, the LED. In a similar way, I created a button component that also has a setup method, and a button component also receives some props, namely for the pin number that the button is connected to. And then I am also grabbing this emit which is a function to emit events to the parent. So I have to explicitly include the emit function, and I am just listening to a bunch of events on the button and using emit to send them to the parent component. Okay, so these are my basic components, and now I have a parent component, and I have to go a bit faster. And now I have my bot component, which has a bit of state, and now I am using a reactive instead of ref, because a reactive is when you want to make an object reactive. So if you want to use an object and listen to changes inside that object, you use a reactive. And again, I'm using some effects, and I'm using an effect to change the state of the LED whenever the button is pressed down. And then I return my render function. So this component called bot will actually have two children, a LED and a button. The LED has two props. One is the pin number, the other is the LED on, that will tell that whether the LED is on or off. And the button will have another prop that's the pin, and a function on change. This will actually be the listener. So whenever the button emits an event called change, and I am emitting this event right here, it will change the state of the button. Okay, so whenever the button changes its state, it will change the state of the button right here, which will then through this effect change the state of LED on, which is passed on the prop to the LED. And then let's see if this works. Okay, again, it's a very simple work, but now we have components. And this is pretty cool, because now I can actually grab these components and combine them and use them in different ways. And I will do that in just one moment. So I really wanted to make something special with these components and with this Arduino. So I am happy to announce the first ever Viewbot. And since it's the first ever Viewbot, it's called Viewbot 3000, because it's the first. And for this Viewbot, I took inspiration in the greatest actor of all times. And I wanted to make this robot feel like human. And so I split the entirety of human emotion into two axes. One goes from sad to happy, and then you can also have two states, the evil and good. So when you are feeling happy, and it's a good feeling of being happy, so you are feeling good, everything is great, you feel the breeze on your face, you are happy, you are relaxed. But you can also be sad, but it can be a good type of sadness. So when you are missing someone, or when you are feeling sorry for someone, so you are feeling sad, but it's actually a good feeling of being sad. But there's also when you are feeling sad, but also evil. So you are kind of angry. You want to destroy something because you are sad about something, and you are feeling like desperate. And then there's the worst kind of feeling of all. It's when you are feeling evil, but you are happy about being evil. So you are feeling sadistic. You want to destroy something just for the pleasure of doing so. And so here we go. I don't know if you are ready. This is the Viewbot 3000. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, Viewbot 3000. So the Viewbot has a couple of components, and I will show you first how they work. No. So, okay. In order to change the happiness of the Viewbot, I am using this this potentiometer that I showed before, right here. And when I turn it this way, you can see that the robot is happy. It has a smiley face. But if I turn it the other way, then suddenly the robot is very sad. It has a frown face. And there are all types of feelings in between, like this. I am waiting for the bus. Oh no, it started raining. Oh, I brought an umbrella. Okay, so you can see all kinds of happiness states. And also, you have two eyes right here. So green is when the robot is feeling good, and red, it's when I press the button right here. Okay. This is when the robot is feeling bad. So green, it's the color of view, good. Red, it's the color of another framework, so evil. And okay, this is how it works. And it even does more. As you can see, the LED is blinking. I will change to good because it's freaking me out. I'm like, okay, good. So the LED is blinking. That's because we blink our eyes. We don't want to. I wanted I wanted the robot to feel more human and not like a static robot like Mark Zuckerberg. But also, we usually blink when there is more light. So if the robot is in the sun, I am pointing a flashlight, you can see that it starts blinking faster. And if it gets darker, it blinks slower. Cool, right? And by the way, all that comes from this nose, which is actually a light sensor. So cool. This is our Viewbot. How does it work? This is the code for the Viewbot. Okay, so right here, I created in this file components. I created a bunch of components that I have been playing with. So I have your LED, your RGB LED, button, a servo. This is the motor that is powering his mouth. The potentiometer, it's another component, and the light sensor, all things like that. Okay, so this is kind of my component library, and now I can use it. I created a bot object, a bot component with a state that's kind of his brain, and the state has those two components, those two parts: the happiness level that goes from 0 to 100, and the alignment, either he is good or evil. And then I created an effect so that we can see what's happening around here. So then I am moving the mouth according to the happiness. So the mouth engine, it's a function of the happiness. And then I am also creating an eyes component. What's that all about? I think it's better if I show this right here. So I have the brain component in this robot, and the happiness is controlling the mouth engine. But also I have an eyes component. This is kind of some abstraction that I made, so I can split my robot into smaller components. And the eye component has the two LEDs, the red one and the green one. And okay, let's see. So yeah, so this is my eyes component. You can see it has two child components, and an LED on pin number 7, and then it changes the property on of that LED according to the alignment. But also I have this is blinking. And you know, usually you are not aware of when you blink your eyes, because that is something that happens kind of automatically in your cerebellum. This is kind of a part of your brain that is responsible for some automatic stuff that happens on your body. So it's kind of a nice way to see, because sometimes you have a bit of behavior that you want to put aside on your application. You don't want to always be thinking about it, because something that's better if it's a bit to take away on the side. And so this is how you can do that with VueJS 3. You can use a use function, so and make that part of your state. So right now I am importing a bit of state called isBlinking. So when the eyes are shut while blink, and I'm using a function that comes from another file called cerebellum. And this file only returns a useBlink, and it has its own internal state that's blinking, and it creates its the sensor for the light, and does whatever it needs to. I have to rush this a bit, and yeah, so it works. So I am importing a bit of state that is managed from somewhere else. So what did this experiment to talk me about the composition API? First, that the reactivity module is very useful by itself. So you can use it and think about other ways that to use the powerful reactivity of Vue, but outside Vue. Also, it brings more potential to separate app logic and to reuse that logic using those use functions. And also, throughout all this code, I never used the keyword this in the JavaScript. This means that the composition API makes things more functional, so you can program in a more functional approach. And also there is like no magic state coming from something called this, that sometimes it's harder to see how it works. It's very declarative. You always know where things are coming from. And also, I could, from this base, I could increase the functionality of these robots very simply. Maybe the morale of the robot would be a computed property. Maybe the robot could fall in love, and that would be a function of the heart. maybe the consciousness could be a reactive object, including several properties. I don't know. Maybe I could have a be nice. That's a reference, so you can change from on off. Or maybe I could add a Sunday machine to this robot, and that would be only like adding another component with a prop for the flavor. Super simple. So I could increase the complexity of this robot in very different and cool ways. And also Viewbots are cute. So, yeah. And thank you very much. This was my talk, and that's it. The code for all this is on my GitHub. You can check it out. And thank you.
Congratulations, Tiago. Fantastic work. I'm so happy that this robot was so cute and it had so many functionalities delivered through Vue. I'm really impressed. Do you have any questions, Tiago? As you saw, the feedback was very positive. People are amazed about that Vue.js can interact with it. And I hope you can tell more. Oh, there is one question from Martin. Tiago, what is Viewbot 4000 going to do?
I don't know. Maybe it will walk my dogs, or it will bring the souls of my enemies. I don't know. I am